Hey, my name is Brennan, and this is your horoscope for Leo for the entire year of 2024. All right, so let's jump into it. So the main keywords for you this year and the main themes are beliefs, finances, career, friends, self, enemies, and relationships. So those are the main themes that I'm going to be talking about, and I'm going to spend the rest of this video kind of expanding on that to talk about what transits coincide with each of those topics being activated for this year in your birth chart. All right, so let's pull up your chart for the year. So this is for Leo rising. All right, so the first transit I want to talk about is some of the eclipses that are taking place this year in your ninth house of belief and your third house of communication. So this is a continuation of eclipses that already started last year in 2023 that represent a sequence of major beginnings and major endings when it comes to these topics in your life. So the ninth house represents education, it represents beliefs, it represents our religious views or spiritual or philosophical views. It can also represent foreign travel and exposure to foreign places, people, and things. So there's some major new beginnings and major endings for you going on in this area of your life. And some of this may be educational, some of it may have to do with travel, but at the core of it, it has to do with your beliefs about the world and what you think the world is like and what your outlook is fundamentally and philosophically. There's some things that you may be learning that are new, and there's other things where you may have reached an ending point in terms of your belief in those things, and you may go through a transition at this point. So this is some things that already started last year, so it should represent the continuation, but also the culmination of that this year, especially around the April timeframe when there's a major eclipse that's going to take place in Aries. So in terms of the third house and the Libra eclipses, so the third house represents communication primarily, which is ironic because I'm having trouble communicating right now. The third house represents communication. It can also represent if the ninth house is what we believe about the world and what we've learned, the third house is how we communicate that to other people. And there may be some things that you're learning about how you communicate and how you might be able to communicate differently through different mediums, or how you might be able to communicate more effectively. So look for some major new beginnings when it comes to that topic and major ways that you could start a new chapter of your life when it comes to communication this year. The third house also can represent siblings, short distance travel and mobility like your car, as well as the third house is neighborhoods and the people around you in your immediate neighborhood or vicinity. So there may be some major beginnings or endings when it comes to those topics as well during the course of 2024. All right, let's look at other topics. I wanted to shift gears to the eighth house and Pisces, which is where you've had a Saturn transit that's been happening over the past year since March of 2023. This year, Saturn is going to move into a conjunction with Neptune, which is where we get some ideas of like nebulousness or nebulous challenges. And it's going to be combined with some added emphasis in September of an eclipse that's going to take place in Pisces. So the eighth house primarily represents shared resources with a partner or other people's money. So this could include things like debt, taxes, your partner's income if you have a partner, and even things like inheritance. So with Saturn going through this house, sometimes it represents a period of challenges or surmountable difficulties that arise in this area, but they're usually difficulties that you're able to overcome or you're able to get through a lot of hard work and effort. So for example, like adopting better strategies for paying off debt can be one good way to deal with a Saturn transit through the eighth house. One of the only issues with this transit is just that because Neptune's there, some of the issues and challenges are going to be a little bit nebulous and a little bit hard to pin down, so that you may not know where the issue is coming from, and it may take you a while to really get a good grasp on it. I think this should become even more of the focus, though, in September, when this transit is highlighted by that eclipse that's going to take place there in Pisces. And then there'll be sort of like a spotlight that's really shown on that area to emphasize it and draw your attention to it more. Sometimes with inheritance, there can also be issues surrounding mortality, where for some reason the idea of mortality, whether it's your own or others, can come up and become more prominent in your life for some reason. But that can often be constructive, like doing things like writing a will or something like that can be a constructive use of that energy. All right, so let's move on to some of the more positive transits this year, where I wanted to highlight some of the Jupiter transits, and one of them is the Jupiter transit in the first half of the year through your 10th house of career. So my primary keywords for this are unexpected opportunities with career and life direction. So this is through Taurus, basically from January through May. And it sort of culminates in May with this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in your 10th house. And Jupiter represents opportunities and growth, and Uranus represents unexpected things that come out of nowhere. So the combined meaning is unexpected opportunities in terms of your career and your overall life direction. So in the first half of the year, and especially in May, I would be on the lookout for opportunities for growth and expansion when it comes to career. There may be some opportunities that come your way that could be like getting a promotion or switching into a new career field that could be beneficial for you or more high paying. Try to think outside of the box when it comes to this transit, though, because Uranus usually rewards uniqueness. It rewards doing things that are like different than what the standard or what is normal. And sometimes when you think outside of the box with Uranus transits, you can find that there are opportunities there that you didn't otherwise think were possible or that other people may have overlooked. So that should be a great transit for career matters this year. After that, I wanted to highlight the problems here, the 11th house transit, because in June, Jupiter is going to move into your 11th house of friends, groups, and alliances. And this is going to indicate and begin a 6-month period, at least, actually a period that will last a little bit longer than 6 months, but will last for the entirety of the second half of this year, of growth and expansion when it comes to groups, friends, and alliances. So for many people, this can mean things like making new friends, expanding your social circle, starting to connect with other people that have similar interests as you, either in terms of like personal things that you enjoy, like hobbies, or even in terms of like political interests or similar beliefs in some sense. Basically, people that have like-minded interests. So the entire second half of the year, but especially June in particular, is going to present some opportunities for making new friends and expanding your social circle. And that's probably going to be one of the most positive transits of the year, besides the 10th house career transit that happens in May. So I would be on the lookout for it, and I would try to take advantage of it in order to expand your social circle while you can during this time. All right. Let's see, other transits this year. There is going to be a Mars retrograde period that's going to take place late in the year, especially in the last 2 months, especially like the October, November, September timeframe. And my primary keywords for this transit is it's going to take place in your first house of body and self, and your 12th house of enemies and self-undoing. So Mars transits can be kind of irritating, and they can indicate tensions surrounding these areas. So with the first one, it can be tensions surrounding your body or tensions surrounding your mind, which can indicate like a period of greater irritability, where you may find yourself more irritable and prone to get into arguments with people for a period. It can also indicate a period where you're more impulsive than at other times, so that you could do things impulsively that could get you into trouble. So it's a good idea to exercise restraint and caution, both so that you don't sort of like get into an accident as a result of acting impulsively, and do something that like hurts you physically, but also in order to restrain yourself in another sense, sort of mentally or character wise, so that if you're more irritable during this time, you don't start any major fights with people that could have been avoided. Because sometimes with Mars retrograde transits, you can initiate what seems like a small fight, which later turns out to be a much bigger and more long-lasting one, especially if you act thoughtlessly during that period. All right, so that's the Mars transit through your first house. The 12th house part is the 12th house usually relates to enemies because it's the counterpart to the 11th house, which signifies friends. So what's interesting is that on the one hand, while you're going to be growing your social circle in the second half of the year with the positive 11th house transit for friends, you need to be careful because with Mars going retrograde in your 12th house, this can also indicate conflicts with people that you don't get along with, or even sometimes people that are outright enemies or that attempt to undermine you. So because this is a retrograde, sometimes it has a backwards looking function. So it may indicate enemies or people that you don't get along with from the past coming back into your life for some reason. This doesn't have to be a huge deal necessarily, but it's something to pay attention to and something to, again, try to exercise some caution or some restraint. That way you don't create any larger conflicts that might be avoidable if you had only sort of restrained yourself instead of diving headfirst into it somewhat impulsively. If you're able to do that, it should be fine though. All right, the final transit that I wanted to mention is that Pluto's moving into Aquarius this year in 2024, and this is going to inaugurate a period of transformative experiences with respect to relationships that will actually last for quite a long time because Pluto transits move so slow. So a Pluto transit through the seventh house represents marriage, partnership, relationships. Usually it just indicates a period where there are these intense experiences that draw us in and draw our attention and cause some deep, like core transformations within us as a result of interactions with other people. So this can be typically like a relationship transformation, whether it's a new relationship coming into your life at this time, or whether it's having this sort of experience through an old relationship. The point of it is just that your relationships are going to be much more deep and much more intense for a period of time with Pluto moving into this sector of your chart. So that can be a good thing or that can be a challenging thing, but it'll be important to pay attention to what sort of themes start to arise for you in relationships this year, because it may give you a preview of some themes that are going to become much more long-term ones in the future. So definitely pay attention to it. All right, so those are all of the main things I wanted to cover today. So that's the reason why my keywords for this year are beliefs, finances, career, friends, self, enemies, and relationships. So here's the main transits that I was correlating that with for those watching the video version. Here's some of the dates associated with them, just so you can refer to that later on if you want to. And otherwise, I think that's it for this horoscope for 2024. So if you'd like a more detailed breakdown of some of the transits this year, be sure to check out my 2024 year ahead astrology forecast on YouTube. Otherwise, for good dates to do things next year, I recently released my 2024 Electional astrology report, where I go through and I pick out the best dates that are the most fortunate for doing different things over the course of the next year. I'm doing a 15% off sale on that right now, so you can find it at theastrologypodcast.com/2024 report. Otherwise, I think that's it for this horoscope. So thanks a lot for watching. Good luck this year, and I'll see you again next year for the horoscopes for 2025. All right, take care. If you appreciate the work I'm doing here on the podcast and you'd like to find a way to support it, then consider becoming a patron through my page on patreon.com. In exchange, you'll get access to some great subscriber benefits. You can find out more information at patreon.com/astrologypodcast. Shout out to our sponsor for this episode, which is the Chani app, the #1 astrology app for self-discovery, mindfulness, and healing. You can download it on the Apple App Store or on Google Play, or for more information, visit app.chani.com. Special thanks to all the patrons that helped to support the production of this episode of the podcast through our page on patreon.com. In particular, shout out to the patrons on our producers tier, including patrons Christy Moe, Ariana Amour, Mandy Ray, Angelique Nambo, Issa Sabah, Jake Otero, Jeannie Marie Kaplan, and Melissa Delano. If you're looking for a reliable astrologer to get an astrological consultation with, then we have a new list of astrologers on the podcast website that we recommend for readings. Find out more information at theastrologypodcast.com/consultations. The astrology software that we use and recommend here on the podcast is called SolarFire for Windows, which is available for the PC at alabe.com. Use the promo code AP15 to get a 15% discount. For Mac users, we recommend a software program called AstroGold for Mac OS. You can find out more information at astrogold.io, and you can use the promo code AstroPodcast15 to get a 15% discount. If you're really looking to expand your studies of astrology, then I would recommend my Hellenistic Astrology course, which is an online course on ancient astrology where I take people through basic concepts up through intermediate and advanced techniques for reading birth charts. You can find out more information at courses.theastrologyschool.com. And finally, thanks to our sponsors, including the Mountain Astrologer magazine, which is a quarterly astrology magazine which you can read in print or online at mountainastrologer.com. And the Northwest Astrological Conference, which is happening both in person and online, May 23rd through the 27th, 2024. You can find out more information at norwac.net.